Hello, Mark Spencer here, and if you know me from the sound of my voice, it's probably from Climactic. Climactic is, and was, or should I say was and will soon be again, a podcast that started in 2018 about the climate movement, about the climate community. Really, it was about people who were taking action on climate change in ways big and small, and it was an exploration from myself and my co-founder, Rich Bowden, to make some sense of what was going on in the world in 2018, and what is, of course, still going on now as I record this in late 2022, just off the back of COP27, of huge climate disasters here in Australia and around the world. And it was an excuse to talk to people who seemed to have more answers than I did, than both of us did. Myself from a sort of urban, in-the-city perspective, being here in Narm, Melbourne, and Rich in Blaney in Central West New South Wales. And it was really good to do that. We did interviews. If you're hearing this, you probably know all of this already, so excuse me for a little bit of a quick walk down memory lane, but it was about 2 years of really good interviews, consistent weekly output from us, some attempts at really ambitious things like an audio magazine format where we would take the interviews we'd already done and recontextualize them and recut them into consistent themes. So looking at the issue of waste, for example, we did a 2-part audio magazine on that topic. I still really love that as an idea, but here we are in late 2022, and the technology is so much further along than what we had access to in early 2018. We can now transcribe our episodes a lot easier to make them searchable, and tools like Descript have come along, which makes audio editing essentially like word editing. You can edit words, and it will edit the underlying audio, which is pretty magical. And I understand if you're listening, that might not be of interest, but if you have an interest in audio editing, I highly recommend you go check out Descript. Anyways, to get back on topic, the Climactic project grew from there. It was no longer just Rich and I doing these interviews. It was multiple other hosts as well, who eventually started their own shows on their own feeds, and Climactic grew to being just one podcast in what I was calling the Climactic Collective. And that was really fun and really rewarding, and it was so great meeting people across the country, many of whom I've still not met in person, and some of whom I met only after years of working together. However, I stopped doing the Climactic Collective. I disbanded it. It's a fun one to say. I disbanded it earlier in 2022, in about July. And the reason for that is I'd just started a new job at Schwartz Media, who you might know as the publisher of the Saturday Paper, the Monthly, and the 7 a.m. Daily News podcast. And I was very excited, but also trepidatious about it, because it was a capital J grown-up job. And I regret disbanding Climactic. I do, but it was the right thing to do at the time, definitely. And even today, I'm glad at the freedom it's given me to not be carrying that around on my back, as it were, now. But I will definitely be coming back in 2023 with more audio projects and more audio work from myself, definitely in collaboration with others, but, and I'll go ahead and say it, so I hold myself to it, but not nearly to the same level of scale and ambition as the Climactic Collective was. I won't be publishing other people's shows, and I won't be taking on as big of a role in the space. But luckily, I don't have to. There is now climate shows winning a climate category in the Australian Podcast Awards. There are climate shows from major commercial networks in Australia something that we did not think was possible in 2018, or seemed so far in the future as to be unbelievable in the short term. And here we are, 4 short years later, or rather 4 very long years later. I'm speaking to you into a brand new mic. It literally was in its box about an hour ago, just got delivered. And it marks for me kind of this maturation, this kind of graduation of podcasting into something well beyond a hobby and something well beyond a passion. And I'll quickly just tell you the story of how this podcast microphone entered my life. As I record this, it's the 23rd of November, so it's a Wednesday. On Sunday, I taught a workshop at the Wattle Fellowship at the University of Melbourne, which is a environmental leadership fellowship offered by the University of Melbourne. It's their 2nd year running. It's run by Lynn Doe, friend of Climactic, friend of mine, amazing young climate organizer and leader and connector. And I was asked to take part in this workshop day for the Wattle Fellowship on Thursday, and I quickly threw together a presentation about the power of storytelling and podcasting, a bit about my story with Climactic and where that's taken me, and to teach some conversational skills and sort of demystify podcasting was my goal with it, to encourage those members to not only consider starting their own podcasts, but to use podcasting as a way of getting the message out about their projects that they're all doing. And when I was putting on this workshop, I realized that so many of the opportunities I've had in the last 5 years have been because of this willingness and enjoyment of speaking into a microphone, of speaking in general, of not being afraid to be heard. And that's the really weird thing about podcasting, is that as I'm sitting here speaking to you, I'm alone. I'm alone in a room. Thankfully, it's quite quiet. Like, the best thing you can hope for when you're recording a podcast is that it's quiet, it is isolated. And yet you've got to use that lack of feedback, that lack of response, that quiet and stillness. You've got to find energy from that and reach out in a really human way and address and connect with your audience that you can't see, you can't hear, can't smell or touch. It's just me. I see my voice in a waveform in front of me. I see the mic I'm speaking into. So all of which is to say, I'm really grateful to you listening, because it's been people just like you that have given me confidence to do this, that have given me feedback, that have taken time to send me emails about the Climactic show, which I know is not an easy thing to do. I've been listening to podcasts since I was 12 years old, and the amount of times I've reached out to a podcast that meant a lot to me, I can count on the fingers of one hand. I am embarrassed to say, because I know as a podcaster how much that matters and how powerful that is, how much we appreciate that when listeners do take the time to let us know that we are being heard and what we're doing matters. So watch this space, definitely, in 2023. I will be back. I'm not sure exactly what that's going to look like yet. I've got some ideas. I'll flesh them out more here. My style will definitely continue to be practicing in public, making mistakes, learning, letting the people who are listening know that if I can do this, they can do it for sure. And not being afraid to not be perfect. There's an I'm sure I've got a few little verbal tics in there as well. If you're listening to this now, before the holidays, have a great end of year. However you celebrate, if you celebrate, if you just enjoy the fact they're public holidays as mandated by the hetero-religious Christian orthodoxy of the Australian government and so-called Australia. Enjoy this period. I hope wherever you are, the sun is shining. I hope if you are in the areas racked by the flooding, I hope the waters recede and that you are safe. And thank you again for joining me. I look forward to seeing you so much in the new year. Take care. I am, as always, reachable on, I used to say hello at climactic.fm. I've let that go. I've let climactic.fm as a website go. I should probably bring that back. So in the meantime, feel free to reach out to me at yankeekiwi@gmail.com. That is my, and will remain always, my personal email address. I don't have to pay for it every month, which is why I let hello at climactic.fm go, to let you really behind the curtain. All right, take it easy. Talk to you soon.